We will start the review of the Shadows of the Empire multimedia project with a novelization written by Steve Perry. The novel takes us back to the original trilogy era and sees our heroes fresh off a series of defeats in The Empire Strikes Back. Han Solo has been frozen in carbonite and is on his way with Boba Fett to Jabba the Hutt. Leia Organa is dealing with the consequences of her hastily professed love for Han right before losing him, possibly forever. And Luke Skywalker is facing the revelation about Darth Vader being his father and dealing with his sound defeat at Bespin. The heroes are licking their wounds and trying to find their next step. Meanwhile, Prince Shizor, leader of the Black Sun criminal syndicate, is attempting to unseat his rival Darth Vader and gain more power in the galaxy. And the best way for him to do that is by killing Luke. Let's get started. The story opens to a familiar scene from The Empire Strikes Back, but from a different perspective. Prince Shizor, failing leader of Black Sun and third most powerful being in the galaxy, behind only Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader, is in the Emperor's throne room during his conversation with Vader. The Emperor names Luke Skywalker as their greatest threat and says he must be eliminated. Shizor recognizes the name Skywalker as being Vader's before his fall. Vader makes the case for turning Luke to the dark side, and Shizor senses hope in Vader's voice and deduces that Luke must be his son and that he is desperate to spare his life by converting him to their side. In order to discredit Vader in Palpatine's eyes, Shizor decides to have Luke killed. The story jumps to the present. Leia is waiting to hear back from Lando Calrissian, who has set out to locate Han before Boba Fett reaches Tatooine. She spends this time trying to come to terms with her developing feelings for Han, as well as trying to cope with losing him. She meets Lando in a seedy canteen on Tatooine. She still doesn't fully trust Lando, even though she finds his explanation of his actions on Bespin to be sufficient. Lando tells her of a mercenary he has hired to find Boba Fett, named Dash Rendar, who has reported the bounty hunter to be in the Jar system. Leia decides to take this information to Luke. Luke has been studying at Obi-Wan's hut, where he found books pertaining to Jedi training and the completion of a lightsaber. The process of crafting the crystals is a multi-week endeavor, and Luke is feeling impatient. When Leia and Lando arrive, they relay the information to him. He thinks it's worth acting upon and reaches out to Rogue Squadron to assist them. Meanwhile, Prince Shizor tasks his human replica droid Guri with hiring assassins to kill Luke. Guri, as an HRD, is a perfect replica of a human woman and possesses great strength and unflinching loyalty. He also meets with Darth Vader, who hires his shipping company to transport supplies and material to a secret, large-scale construction project the Emperor is working on. It is during this meeting that the reader is informed about the reasoning for his hatred of Vader. Years prior, the Empire placed a biological research facility on Phaelin. A breach at the lab caused a particularly deadly strain of disease to escape. Vader's response was to completely wipe out the entire city containing the lab, along with Shizor's entire immediate family. In the Jar system, Luke, Leia, and Lando meet with Rogue Squadron on a small moon named Kyle. After landing on the moon, they are introduced to Dash Rendar, who tracked Boba Fett to another moon in the system called Gaul. Luke recognizes Dash, and Dash tells him that he flew one of the airspeeders on Hoth. Wedge goes over the situation on Gaul, and the situation is not good. There are two Star Destroyers stationed at Gaul, each with a full complement of TIEs, and the Imperial presence on Gaul is formidable. The final plan settled upon is for Rogue Squadron to keep the 144 TIEs and two Star Destroyers busy, while Dash leads the Falcon to the Slave One's location. Luke leads Rogue Squadron into the system and gets the Star Destroyers' attention. The ships dispatch their TIEs and the battle begins. With the Imperial defenders distracted, Leia, Lando, Chewbacca, and the droids sneak into Gaul and follow Dash and the Outrider across the terrain of the moon, flying as low as possible to avoid the sensors. After a while, the rogues buy all the time they can and Luke orders a micro jump to hide behind the gas giant of Jar. Before they make the jump, Wes Jansen's R2 unit takes control of his X-Wing and targets Luke, trying to kill him. Luke successfully disables Wes's X-Wing, and they're able to tow it away from the battle. Back on Gaul, Dash finishes his escort duties and leaves, explaining that he was paid to lead them there and nothing more. As they arrive to where Boba Fett is located, they see Slave One taking off, as a contingent of TIE fighters arrive. Leia orders Lando to follow Slave One. Despite Lando's best fighting, they are unable to catch Boba Fett and are forced to retreat back to their base. Back at the base, Dash returns and explains what happened. Luke is furious that he abandoned the Falcon, but Dash accurately explains that he was paid to escort, not protect. In order to get his mind off his anger, Luke and Wedge investigate Wes's deactivated R2 to find out what the malfunction was that caused it to attack Luke. They are shocked to find that the R2 was programmed by someone to attempt an assassination. Suddenly, a tech worker shoots at Luke. Luke dodges the attack, and Wedge quickly kills the woman. After the Falcon returns, Leia explains what occurred on Gaul. Reasoning that Boba Fett will eventually need to go to Tatooine, Luke returns to Obi-Wan's hut to continue his training, finish his lightsaber, and lay low from any further assassination attempts. Meanwhile, Leia will look to find out who's trying to kill Luke by mining Lando's underworld contacts. In order to protect Luke, she hires Dash to discreetly look out for him. Back on Coruscant, Shizor is working to manipulate Vader and the Emperor. He discovers the location of a rebel shipyard in the Vergesso asteroids in the Outer Rim and feeds it to Vader. When Vader informs the Emperor of the location, Palpatine orders Vader to handle it personally. Despite his desire to continue pursuing Luke, he has no choice in the matter and takes Death Squadron to destroy the shipyard. After he leaves, Shizor meets with the Emperor and reveals that it was he who gave Vader the information, introducing suspicion between the two of them. On Tatooine, Luke finishes his lightsaber and successfully tests it. Suddenly, a swoop bike gang arrives and attacks him. He defends himself against a few of them and manages to steal one of their swoop bikes. He speeds off with the gang in pursuit. He fights off several of them, but it is only the sudden arrival of Dash Rendar that allows him to escape with his life. Dash explains that Leia hired him to keep an eye on Luke. He set up at Mos Eisley and kept an eye on things and was able to learn that Jabba hired the swoop gang to kill Luke. He got his own swoop and followed the gang to help Luke, which is a level in the Shadows of the Empire game. Meanwhile, Leia has met with the operator of a casino on Rhodia, who just so happens to be Greedo's uncle, Avaro. Avaro assures her that he holds her no ill will concerning what happened to Greedo, chalking it up to his nephew's foolishness. He also agrees to attempt to make contact with Black Sun on her behalf. Until Black Sun responds, he offers his casino to them. Back on Tatooine, Luke and Dash are discussing the assassination attempt when a message pod arrives, addressed to Leia. After a few failed attempts, Luke guesses the password and is greeted by a message from a Bothan named Koth Melon, inviting her to come to Bothawi in order to get information vital to the Alliance's future. Unable to make it to Rhodia to get Leia and then go to Bothawi by the time limit given to them, Luke and Dash decide to travel there and see if they can make contact with Koth. Back on Coruscant, Shizor receives news of Leia's attempt to contact Black Sun. He watches holo recordings of her and is immediately enamored with her. Realizing that he can possibly have her and use her to find Luke at the same time, he dispatches Guri to meet with her. On Bothawi, Luke and Dash meet with Koth. He explains that the Bothan spy network has received a tip about information concerning an important Imperial construction project that's being transported on a freighter named the Suprosa. They intend to steal the data and would like Luke and Dash to help. They travel to the location where the ship will come out of hyperspace and wait for the ship's arrival. When it arrives, they hail the ship and order it to surrender as a squadron of Bothan Y-Wings begins disabling the ship. Suddenly, the freighter fires on the squadron, destroying one of the X-Wings. The squadron falls back, but the Suprosa fires a missile into the heart of the fighters. Dash moves to destroy the missile, but his attempts fail and 8 Bothans are killed in the explosion. This devastates Dash, whose confidence in his ability was absolute. Despite the losses, the remainder of the task force is able to board the ship and capture the information. Afterwards, the Bothans tell Luke that they need to travel to Kothlas to decrypt the data. Luke decides to go with them, but realizes that Dash, in his dejected state, would be unable to handle any Imperial resistance they might encounter. He sends him to Rhodia to fill Leia in. On Rhodia, Leia's patience is waning. Just when she has reached her limit, she gets word that a representative of Black Sun will arrive soon. Before the Black Sun representative gets there, Dash arrives and fills her in on the Suprosa raid. Guri arrives, and she and Leia exchange pleasantries for some time. Despite her appearances as a human woman, Leia and the rest of her party are all suspicious of her. Guri leaves to attend to some other business, agreeing to meet 3 days later. In order to get more information on her, Lando sets up a scanner in the room to give them her health status. They also plan to drug her with a sedative. Guri arrives, and she and Leia continue to talk about trivialities. Lando reviews the readout from the scanners and finds out that her skin is only 10 years old. Her body temperature is 10 degrees below the human level, and all her bodily functions are operating perfectly. The sedative put in her tea ends up not working. Finally, she demonstrates her strength and threatens to kill Leia unless she comes with her. It is only the prospect of being shot by Lando, Chewbacca, and Dash that causes Guri to surrender. On Kothlas, the Bothans begin the process of decrypting the information. Suddenly, an explosion rips through the safe house, and a team of Barabel bounty hunters attack. A Bothan manages to hide the data, but most of them, including Koth, are killed in the skirmish. Luke, realizing he is significantly outnumbered, surrenders to them. Back on Rhodia, Leia and the group are debating what to do with Guri and how to sneak into Coruscant. After some discussion, Guri makes them an offer. She can take Leia to Coruscant to meet with Shizor. Seeing that is the only option, she accepts with Chewbacca in tow. Back on Kothlas, Luke has been transported to the Barabel bounty hunters' hideout. The leader, Shaktal, is very cordial to Luke, expressing admiration of the Jedi amongst her people. She explains that there are two competing bounties on Luke's head, one alive and one dead. To his fortune, the higher of the two bounties is for alive. Luke attempts to offer even more money to be released, but after hearing the number, realizes that he could never match the bounty. As Vader is returning from his mission to destroy a rebel shipyard, he is contacted by the Emperor. Palpatine tells him that Vader's bounty hunters have captured Luke and are holding him on Kothlas. Vader is surprised at how the Emperor seems to know things he has no business knowing. Palpatine orders him to go get Luke, but adds an extra assignment. The Suprosa was raided and important information stolen from it. The theft of this information was actually part of a ploy by the Emperor to trap the rebels with a very functional Death Star, by suggestion of Prince Shizor. In order to sell the ruse, Palpatine wants Vader to raid those associated with the theft. Yuri manages to sneak Leia and Chewbacca into Coruscant disguised as recently deceased bounty hunters Bosch and Snuva. She takes them to Shizor's palace and introduces Leia to Shizor himself. She is instantly infatuated with him, a result of his species' ability to emit pheromones to beguile the opposite sex. Back on Kothlas, Luke spends a few days getting a full understanding of the routine at the base. Once he's certain he has reached the best time to make his move, he uses the Force to manipulate the person bringing him food. He is caught making his escape, and a fight ensues. As he escapes from the building, Lando shows up in a speeder to help him escape. They make it to the Falcon and leave the planet, hiding in a nearby asteroid field until the malfunctioning hyperdrive can be repaired. The Executor arrives at Kothlas, and Vader takes an assault group to the planet. He orders a raid on the bounty hunter's safe house and speaks to the highest-ranking member of the group that's still alive. He is told that Luke managed to escape prior to Vader's arrival, and that Black Sun issued the other bounty on Luke, meaning that Shizor has been acting against him the whole time. Back in Shizor's palace, Chewbacca is furious at being separated from Leia. He forces his way into the room right before Leia succumbs to Shizor's advances. She agrees to deal with Chewbacca and leaves the room. Separated from Shizor's pheromones, Leia's senses come back to her and she realizes that she is being manipulated by the Phalanx. She agrees to keep Shizor distracted for as long as possible while Chewbacca escapes to find Luke. She returns to the room and continues with the charade until the last possible moment, and attacks Shizor. He drops any of his romantic pretense and has her locked in her quarters. Afterwards, he speaks with Guri, who assures him that the guards made Chewbacca's escape look legitimate. Shizor smiles, knowing that the Wookiee will bring Luke Skywalker to him. After escaping the Kothlas system and the Executor, Luke and Lando head toward Tatooine. While en route, they receive a message from Chewbacca explaining what happened to him and Leia. They travel to Coruscant and sneak onto the planet. They commandeer 2 sets of elite stormtrooper armor and start searching out one of Lando's contacts, who happens to also have been a contact Leia used. After they arrive, they find Chewbacca already there. Before getting any further information, they are attacked by 4 attackers outside the building. The 3 of them fall into a defensive position and are in a difficult spot, but are saved by the timely arrival of Dash Rendar, who is seeking to make up for his failure at the Suprosa. Meanwhile, Vader returns to Coruscant. Palpatine informs him that he is going to review the progress on the Empire's new construction project. Vader contacts Shizor and makes it absolutely clear to him that he is to leave Luke Skywalker alone. He remains on Coruscant to ponder what Shizor's goals might be. Luke and his companions decide to infiltrate Shizor's palace via the planet's extensive sewer systems. This is seen adapted in the video game level where Dash traverses the complex network alone before battling a giant diet. While they're working upward from the sewer, Luke takes the opportunity to reach out to Leia and the Force to warn her that he is coming. Leia feels the nudge in the Force and makes her move on Guri. She escapes the palace. Shizor and Guri, along with some guards, pursue her. In his palace on Coruscant, Vader senses Luke's familiar Force presence, though it is far more powerful than the last time he sensed it on Bespin. Oddly, however, there is a second resonance in the Force reminiscent of an echo. Vader assumes it to be an echo because with the Emperor light years away, he and Luke are the only ones powerful enough in the Force to register what he feels. Luke and company break into the lower levels of the palace just as Leia is making her way to them. United, they decide the best way to escape is to go upward in the palace and find a way to rendezvous with the Falcon being piloted by the droids. Shizor and Guri confront them, and Shizor is amazed at Luke's skill. Lando uses the threat of a thermal detonator to force Shizor and Guri to allow them to get away. As they leave, Lando sets up a bomb that will destroy the palace in 5 minutes. They make it to the Falcon and flee just in time. Shizor also escapes and makes it to his skyhook in space. As the Falcon flees Coruscant, Shizor orders his fleet to encircle the Falcon and destroy it. Unbeknownst to Shizor, his communications are being monitored by Vader's agents. When they hear Shizor order his forces to destroy the Falcon and kill Skywalker, Vader is alerted, and he knows he has Shizor right where he wants him. The Falcon's odds of survival are slightly improved by Dash moving to the Outrider and the timely arrival of Rogue Squadron, but the rebels are still vastly outnumbered. Despite the severe odds, they are still able to inflict a disproportionate amount of damage to Shizor's forces. Shizor watches in frustration but remains sure that his forces will eventually succeed. As the odds continue to move against them, the rebels come to the realization that there is no way out of this. They are suddenly alerted to the arrival of the Executor, which deploys its full complement of TIE fighters, further exacerbating the rebels' predicament. Or so it seems. The TIE fighters speed towards the Falcon, the Outrider, and Rogue Squadron, and fly right past them, targeting Shizor's fighters. Vader contacts Shizor and tells him he knows he violated a direct order to leave Skywalker alone. He orders him to call off his forces. Shizor refuses to do so, and Vader orders the Executor to destroy Shizor's skyhook. The skyhook erupts in a massive explosion, hurling debris across the space above Coruscant. The rebels see their chance to escape and flee through the wreckage. Suddenly, a large piece of debris flies in toward the Outrider and seemingly hits it, exploding in a flash of light. The rebels leave the system. Back on Tatooine, the rebels have gathered to prepare for their assault on Jabba's palace to rescue Han, reasoning that eventually Boba Fett will deliver him there. They receive word from the Bothans that the missile used by the Suprosa was covered in a diamond boron armor that made it impossible to shoot down, meaning that Dash had not failed to save the Bothans at the assault on the freighter. Luke regrets that Dash had not lived long enough to learn the truth. He turns his attention to the coming mission and records a message to present to Jabba. This is a fun book that returns the narrative to the inter-trilogy time period. Steve Perry did a really good job of characterizing the different characters accurately for the time between Empire and Jedi. They feel markedly different than we see them in the later books of the expanded universe. Luke is handled well as we see the true growth in his command of the Force. We can see the Jedi he will be when he faces Vader again. We also see him grappling with the realization of his father's identity and what that might mean. Conversely, we get Vader's perspective as well, something that was rare at this point in the EU's development. Vader's primary focus, almost to the point of obsession, is getting Luke and turning him to the dark side. Every task the Emperor gives him, every opponent that causes him problems, every obstacle that gets in his way is another annoyance he must overcome. In addition to his hunt for Luke, we also see his attempts to feed off the dark side to increase the time he can spend outside his suit. It's just an interesting look inside Vader's head. Leia's primary motivation is getting Han back from Boba Fett and then keeping Luke safe from the bounty hunters. This leads her to employing Dash Rendar and then participating in the mission to Jar. After the attempt on Luke's life, she hires Dash to keep him safe and then pursues his would-be assassins herself. This leads her into the lair of the Dark Prince, where she is enamored by Shizor's pheromones. This part of the story is understandably a bit disturbing, as it basically is tantamount to rape. Throughout the story, Leia spends a great deal of time trying to figure out her feelings for Han and considering his response to her declaration of love on Bespin. There were two characters introduced in this story, both of which are fairly popular considering how sparse they are in the EU, Prince Shizor and Dash Rendar. Shizor is a nice villain for the book and presents an opponent different from Vader and Palpatine. Rather than intimidate with pure power or lash out in violent retribution like the Emperor or Vader would, Shizor is patient and conniving. He also enjoys the luxury his immense resources provides him, dining at fancy restaurants, taking long baths with rare oils, and wearing expensive fabrics. He is driven by a lust for power and a thirst for revenge, two goals that often end in self-destruction. Dash Rendar is clearly a Han Solo stand-in, with Leia commenting upon their general similarities. However, the Shadows of the Empire video game provides Dash with extra characterization that really helped increase the fan affinity. The book ends with the main characters assuming him to be dead, but the other parts of the multimedia project reveal that he used the explosion as a diversion to make a concealed escape, reasoning that being remembered as a martyr was far more enjoyable than actually becoming one. Dash is a brash and arrogant character in the book, but we get the sense that if he'd stuck around, he probably would have softened much as Han Solo did. This was a fun project that really showed what Lucasfilm could do with enough coordination. It never tried anything like it again, but the lessons of planning large, full-scale storytelling were put to good use in the new Jedi Order series, which is the closest thing to the Shadows of the Empire project that we ever saw again. A new Jedi Order toy line would have been a great addition during its run. This project was an ambitious undertaking. While the results were not always perfect, you do get a sense that there was sincere effort being made to produce something that had never been produced. Even when it's at its worst, it's still pretty good. If you haven't checked out the many iterations of Shadows of the Empire, make sure to look into some of it. If you have, let me know your favorite property within the project down below. Thanks for watching.